Hey everyone, it's Miss Joyce. Today we'll be finding common denominators between two fractions. Rewrite each fraction with common denominators. So the two starting fractions we have are 2/3 and 3/4. We're going to use a table to help list out the multiples of each of these denominators so that we can circle the common denominator. So over here on the left, we put both of our denominators, 3 from the first fraction and 4 from the second fraction. Let's list out the first 5 multiples of 3. So we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Let's do the same for 4. We have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Now that we've listed out the multiples of each of these denominators, we're going to circle the common denominator. So we're going to look at both of these lists and find the first number that we can see that is in both multiple lists. We can see that 12 is the first number that is in both of these lists. So that means 12 is going to be our common denominator. So what we're going to do is rewrite each of the fractions with this common denominator 12. Let's start with 2/3. So we're going to make an equal sign, and then we said our common denominator is going to be 12. So we're going to put 12 on the bottom. Now we need to think, what can we multiply by 3 to get to 12? Well, 3 times 4 gets us 12. So whatever we multiply on the bottom, we need to multiply on the top. So since we multiplied by 4 on the bottom, we need to multiply by 4 on the top. 2 times 4 is 8. So that means that 2/3 is equivalent to 8/12. Let's do the same for 3/4. We'll have our equal sign, and we know that our denominator is going to be 12 since that's the multiple that was in both lists. That's our common denominator. So let's think, what can we multiply by 4 to get to 12? Well, 4 times 3 equals 12. So we'll be multiplying both our numerator and our denominator by 3. Since we multiplied by 3 on the bottom, we're going to multiply by 3 on the top. 3 times 3 is 9. So that means that 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. Let's try another problem. Here we have 3/5 and 5/10. Again, we're going to start with a table, and we're going to list out the multiples of each denominator so we can find the common denominator. So over here on the left, we're going to put a 5 here in the first row because the first denominator is 5, and a 10 in the second row because our second denominator is 10. Let's list out the first 5 multiples of each of these denominators. We have 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. Let's do the same for 10. We have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now let's see which number we found in both lists. We can see that 10 is the first number found in both of these lists. That means this is our common denominator. You might also notice there's 20 in both of these lists as well. That's a fine denominator to use too. That's also a common denominator. You would just be getting another equivalent fraction. So let's rewrite 3/5 using our denominator as 10. So on the bottom here, we're going to put a 10 because that's our common denominator. Now let's think, what can we multiply by 5 to get to 10? Well, 5 times 2 is 10. So since we multiplied by 2 on the bottom, we're going to multiply by 2 on the top as well to create our equivalent fraction. 3 times 2 equals 6. So that means 3/5 is equivalent to 6/10. Let's do the same for 5/10. So here we have 5/10. We're going to rewrite this so the denominator is 10. Now let's think, what do we multiply by 10 to get to 10? Well, that would be times 1. So since we're multiplying by 1 on the bottom, we're going to multiply by 1 on the top. 5 times 1 is 5. So notice here, our starting fraction was already in tenths. So 6/10 and 5/10 have the common denominator of 10. Let's go ahead and try one more problem. Here we have 1/2 and 2/3. We're going to first list out our multiples of each of the denominators. Since 2 is our first denominator, we'll put that in the first row. And since 3 is our second denominator, we'll put that in the second row. So here we have 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. In the second row, we have 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. Let's look at both of these rows and try to find a number in both of these lists. We can see that the number 6 is found in both of these lists. That means 6 is going to be our common denominator. So we're going to rewrite 1/2 as 6. So we'll have our equal sign, and in the denominator, we'll put 6. Now let's think, what do we multiply by 2 to get to 6? Well, 2 times 3 equals 6. So since we're multiplying by 3 on the bottom, we're also going to multiply by 3 on the top. 1 times 3 is 3. So that means 1/2 and 3/6 are equivalent fractions. Let's do the same for 2/3. We're going to rewrite 2/3 as something over 6, since 6 is our common denominator. Now let's think, what can we multiply by 3 to get to 6? Well, 3 times 2 equals 6. So since we're multiplying by 2 on the bottom, let's multiply by 2 on the top. 2 times 2 is 4. So that means 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6.